So delighted to be joined on the show today by the director of Last Stop in Yuma County, Francis Galluppi. Hi, Francis. How are you?
Good. How are you, man?
Yeah, all good. Thanks very much for joining us today, and
Yeah, of
congratulations on the
course.
movie. Um,
Thank you.
it's a fantastic time. We'll get into it. But just to kind of go back to the kind of start of your process for this movie, how long has Last Stop been kind of in your mind, in your wheelhouse for? Has it been something you've been working on for a long time, or is it a fairly fresh idea for you?
It definitely feels like a long time. So I wrote the script. Let's see. My wife was pregnant with my daughter. I think so 2020 is when I started writing the script. Might have been the tail end of 2019. But yeah, we wrapped the movie the end of 2022, and I'm still kind of like in it, right? Like my daughter's like first words were like "last stop in Yuma County." Like, it's been such a huge part of uh, our life for the past 5 years. So,
Mm,
um, yeah, but it's weird. It's like one of those things where it's my first feature, so um,
mm,
it's like I feel like I've been like thinking about it forever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
and it really just kind of like um it was the idea sort of stemmed from like I grew up playing in like touring and punk bands and stuff, and like
Okay.
stopping by like roadside diners and shit like that, and like so part of me thinks like, oh, I've been thinking about this story forever.
Yeah.
uh but yeah, it feels like a long time though.
Right. So
Yeah,
it's almost like a sort of lived-in experience for you then, if you're saying touring in punk bands. And I've been to the States a few times, seen some of these small diners.
yeah,
They certainly have their own sort of feel to them, and there's nothing like the way that Yuma feels is it feels American. It's got that very what's the
yeah,
best word to describe it?
Americana.
Yeah, the feel to it because the diners, the roadside diners, the gas stations and things like that was that something you felt kind of passionate about coming across throughout the movie, like that sort of American feel to it.
Yeah, I think like I don't know. I always sort of gravitate towards Americana in some way, and it's
Mm,
weird because like I grew up in the suburbs,
right.
like and for some reason I'm always like small town, period piece, like
Aye,
old music. It's
aye.
like it's just something that I just inherently sort of gravitate towards. Uh, but I for this movie, I actually wrote the script specifically to this location. So
Okay.
with my short films, like um, I made my first short in 2018, I think it was 2017
Mm,
and 2018. But like I basically was just writing based on locations we had free access to. So like my buddy had a house out by the Salton Sea, a desert house that was all run down, and so I wrote a short horror thing over there. And then like my buddy had a cabin in Oregon, and I wrote like this weird black and white sci-fi specifically for that cabin. So
mm,
when it came time to writing the feature, it was like, well, I'm just going to do that again. And like, so I kind of scouted around. And we land there's so this location in Last Stop. It's like a very popular, overused movie ranch. Like they have shot like House of a Thousand Corpses and like Identity and like a ton of
okay.
commercials and music videos. I didn't know that at the time. Like I stumbled across it and I was like, this place is fucking amazing. And took a bunch of pictures and started writing the script. And then after like, I discovered it, that's when I started seeing it pop up in everything. And for a while, it's like, oh man, everyone's going to know. And nobody fucking gives a shit. You know what I mean? It's like nobody, unless you're like specifically like, making movies in Los Angeles, otherwise nobody fucking cares that it's been used a million times.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very cool. And you said there with your shorts being horror, sci-fi, this has got the kind of more sort of Western-ish feel to it. Certainly,
Yeah.
that's how it felt for me. Um, is that again, is that a sort of genre that interests you? Have you, did you write, when you started writing for it, was there any sort of sci-fi or horror elements? There's horrific elements of violence, which is fine. I like that. But
No, I think like so with my other stuff, I sort of co-wrote it with friends. It's weird
Mhm.
though when I sit down and I write just by myself, I sort of inherently just gravitate towards these type of movies, like
Okay.
crime, thriller, situational stuff, dark
Yeah.
comedy. Like that's kind of like what I feel like. Um, yeah, I just sort of gravitate towards that.
Mhm.
I mean, I love all movies, right? If I could write like Sleepless in Seattle, I'd be fucking stoked. But like, I just, I can't write movies like that. I mean, maybe I could, but they're not going to be good. But yeah, but I would love to, man. I mean, I just love all genres. It's not even about like, yeah,
Uh,
um, maybe one day.
mm. And you say you're a lover of all movies, and I can tell certainly in the cast for this as your first feature, you've got a stacked cast. You've got horror royalty and Barbara Crampton and
Yeah,
Richard Brake, the Night King himself, and Jim
yeah, yeah,
Cummings from the kind of indie background. Gene Jones, who's been in Hateful Eight and Sacrament and all manner of movies. How does
yep.
a cast like that come together? Like, because it's incredible. It's a fantastic cast.
Yeah, man. I mean, so it's sort of a long story, but I'll try and give you the cliff notes. Like, um, there was a version of this movie that I was going to make for $50,000, maybe 100 if we can raise more, and like that was the version I started with, where I was going to produce and just do everything myself. And we had a loose connection with Richard Brake, and he read the script. He called me. This was like in 2020, right after I wrote it, and he was game. Like he's just the loveliest
Mm,
dude ever. He was like, "I love the script. I want to do it, even if it's a micro budget movie. I'm there." And so then I sort of optioned the script to a company that was going to make it for a lot of money, but they needed a big name, and we just got a million no's, right? And a lot like it just they wanted this movie to be something that I didn't want it to be. It was like
mhm.
they wanted Jean-Claude Van Damme in it, and like the
Right.
whole
Okay.
time I wrote it for Jim. Like I had Jim in mind, I had Jocelyn, I had
Okay.
all these character actors in mind when I was writing the script. Like, um, uh, so it was just sort of 2 years of like sort of a nightmare situation, where
Mm,
and then as soon as the option expired, I pulled it and I just said, fuck it, I'm just gonna make this movie the way I wanted to,
okay.
with the cast I want to. So I just wrote letters to everybody, man. Like,
Right.
I just was like, Nick Logan, I saw you and I care a lot and can't stop thinking about the performance. And I think I wrote this part and I
Mm,
think you'd be great, blah, blah, blah. And I got really fucking lucky. Like, sort of got and like once we got to a certain point, it was like, yeah, we had like Jocelyn and Jim and Gene and Robin and all these people. And then it was like, okay, well, we need to cast the receptionist now. Let's just look at some tapes. Like, and I was like, well, like, what if we got Barbara Crampton? And then my casting director was like, dude, Barbara's not going to come and play a receptionist for one day. And I was like, but we can try, And
yeah.
so, and it was the same thing with like Alex Esso, like, and Sam Huntington. Like, I love these actors. I've been watching Sam since I was a kid in like Detroit Rock City. Um,
Mm,
and even though they come in and it's a small part, I just kind of shot my shot. It was like, fuck it, let's try, and uh I think a part of it, like looking back, I'm like, Jim definitely probably helped, you know what I mean,
yeah.
casting Jim. Like everyone was like, I want to be in a movie with Jim. Like he's just such a fucking, his movies are so good. And
Mm,
but yeah, I got really lucky, man. I guess that's all I can say.
yeah. Yeah.
And I've stayed really close with everybody. They're all just amazing people. And it was really, really a passion project. Like felt like fucking
Mm,
summer camp every day. It was very cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine it would just be just a fantastic
Yeah.
experience. And you having that as your first feature, did you feel like you could lean on them for any advice, or did you prefer to maybe take a step back from it in terms of that? Could you speak to Jim or speak to Barbara and felt comfortable doing that?
I prepped so much. Like,
Mm,
I was going to the location, I was photo boarding, I used Shot Designer, and I had like, I mean, here I can kind of show you. So like
okay.
this is sort of like my process, like where I sort of plan like every fucking shot very meticulously, like it's
Yeah.
sort of
Wow.
like a gameplay. So
Mm,
I think, you show up on the day and I sort of printed these things out and we would sort of huddle and I'd be like, this is what's happening. And we spent, I would do one-on-one Zooms with every actor and we would like comb through the script and anything that felt contrived, I would like rewrite it on the spot. And I was I worked on the character with them, outside
mm,
of being on set. And so I think like by the time we got there, it was just like it was a machine. Like we were just nobody questioned it. You know what I mean?
okay. Yeah.
Nothing was really falling apart because it was like just stick to the plan and we're good.
Yeah.
Obviously, like every day. I mean, on any feature, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You're like, oh yeah, we're good on time. We're good on time. And then the last hour of the day is always like, oh fuck, we have to do like fuck it. And that's when you scramble and you're like, okay, let's take these four shots and blend it into one.
Mm,
Um, and everyone was game. But there were certainly times that like things were things out of our control were happening, like weather,
mm,
right? Like it's supposed to be hot as fuck in the desert in this movie, and the second day there's a full-blown rainstorm, and like
mm,
HMIs are getting knocked over, and like we're literally we're looking, the camera is pointed directly at a window, which
aye.
actually is crazy because that there's a shot in the movie, I think it's when Jim is doing the sales pitch or whatever to Jocelyn.
Mhm.
It's pouring rain outside, and you can't even tell in the movie.
Yeah.
We had to clean it all up with sound design. But there was moments like that where I was just like, "Oh my god, like what have I done? What am I doing?" And then Jim would kind of like come up to me and he would just like grab me and be like, "The movie's going to be great, dude. It's all going to be okay." And like, so
Yeah.
having Jim there just as sort of like, oh, he's done this before. He's made three independent movies. Like, it was really nice to have like Jim's support. I mean, everybody's support really, but because Jim has been on the other side and, he's gone through this
Yes.
kind of stuff, like he would kind of look at me and recognize it and, you know,
Mm,
offer some condolences. like, uh,
aye.
but yeah, yeah.
Aye. Good. And speaking of the movie, you've mentioned that, you're into the sort of crime thrillers along with dark
Yeah.
humor. You've balanced it really well in this. Was it a difficult point for you, or how did you come about getting to? We won't go too spoiler heavy, obviously, but um, you've got certain comedic elements that come in at points throughout the sort of, maybe we'll say for the first sort of hour, and then you've got to have almost like a release of tension. Getting that moment spot on as you do, was that again? You've said you've got your storyboard, everything's meticulously planned out, and did that feel like the right time for a break of the tension that's been building? Because you're on the edge of your seat from the first minute. You know what's been going on. There's been a bank robbery, and now we're working towards the end game almost, or what we think is the end game.
Yeah, you're talking about the
The-
standoff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was always the intention, right? Like it was always an intention to be like, let's do the Hitchcock thing. Let's the bomb under the table. We're going to show the audience the fuel truck in the beginning. So now the audience knows something that none of the characters know. That
Mm,
fuel truck is never showing up,
yeah.
And yeah, the movie was always about like, for me, was really when I started was like, this is the knife salesman's story. This
Hmm.
is like
Yeah.
sort of an allegory for greed. So,
Yeah, it's just because you've mentioned the fact you're a fan of like crime thrillers along with dark humor. You have
mhm.
sort of comedic elements peppered throughout, while there's this sort of ongoing tension in the background. And then we finally have the release with the standoff. Was it
Yeah,
important
yeah.
getting that sort of spot on for, because the movie does continue, we've still got a good bit of time potentially in a sort of maybe in a lesser movie. There would be standoff at the end and then you've cut to black. But this has got more to it than that, and finding that exact point to allow the story to carry on? Was it ideal for getting it there?
Yeah, that I mean that was always intentional for sure.
Mm,
And I never wanted to end on a standoff. And like balancing the comedy, I mean, um, I think that like in any sort of like movie with a lot of tension, like I think it's so important to inject moments of levity and comedy because like
mm,
it just makes the audience like that pull and release makes the
yeah,
fucking pull so much fucking stronger when you're giving the audience a break. If they're just on the edge of their seat the entire fucking time, like, you know, it's like torture. So you got to kind of
yeah.
give that pull and release. But you know, there was like, but obviously the movie too, um, any movie, I think there's always an evolution to it. Like, you know,
Mm,
it's what's on the page, and then you cast, and you're there on the day, and things change, and then the edit, things change, and um, there was like, so my DP and I planned, like I said, we had this whole fucking movie planned down to a T, and then, um, but when Nicholas Logan, who plays Travis with the Bigfoot for President shirt, shows up
mm,
on set, he's gonna do something, you know, like he is just
yeah.
that kind of actor. And uh and we had talked about this character so much that when he showed up, he was like really just hamming it up. And
Mm,
rather than being like, oh, let's tone it down, I was like, go bigger, you know?
yeah.
And I remember there's a moment where my DP was like, friend, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you don't want to have him do another take that's just a little like not so insane. And I was like, Mac, like, um, you need to get on board with the movie we're making now, and not the movie we talked about 2 weeks ago. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
it's
yeah.
it's working, so let's lean in.
Hmm.
So there's always like maybe I didn't on the page realize that like Travis's character was gonna like, you know, wear a crop top. You know what I mean? Like, and like be picking his belly button and shit. But it worked, you know, and that's
Mm,
the fun part. Like you plan and you plan and you plan, and then like when the sort of spontaneity happens on set and it's working, don't be afraid to pivot and just be like, okay, like let's roll with this because it's fun and it works, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
He worked well against the sort of calculated coldness of Bo as well with Richard Brake. Like the having the kind of, as you said, the more over the top side of the
Yeah.
coin, and Bo being just watching everything very stoic, very in the moment and calculating. Like you feel like he's maybe a few moves ahead than
Yeah.
for what everyone
Always.
else is. Yeah. And yeah, the
Yeah.
two of them
Yeah.
balance up really well. Um
Yeah. Thanks,
it was
man.
like, I know you've got a busy day today, so just the movie's now coming out on Arrow Video, or it's out on Arrow Video.
Yeah.
Is how important do you feel it is getting your movie released on physical media the way streaming can be now, with things getting picked up and dropped, and you've now got people can physically buy your and own your movie and have it in their home forever? Because I think it's a big thing nowadays as well.
Um, I can't tell you how important it is. Like for me, it's everything. Like having the physical release of this movie has probably been like the coolest thing for me. Like I mean, physical media is my film school, and yeah, I feel you, man. Like here, I'll show you. I have like I don't know if you can see it on my phone, but like here's part of my Blu-ray collection, just so you know I'm not bullshitting you. But like that's my wall
Oh,
of Blu-rays. Um,
yeah,
yeah, it's so important to me, man. Like, you know, and Arrows was so great, and they like really, I really got to. I feel like I was really a part of this release, and they listened to me, and like I was like, oh, what if we
mm,
made the booklet look um, like a old pulp novel? And they were like,
yeah,
sweet, you know, like they've been great. But yeah, no, I think it's really important. I mean, like, it sucks when you see a movie like Rebel Ridge that came out last year on Netflix, and it's just
yeah,
like it just exists on Netflix. Like I don't know, man. I want if I love something, like I want a tangible copy of it. Like
mm, yeah,
you know, I want to be able to go to the bonus features and watch interviews and commentary, and so to have that with Last Stop, you know, on several different format. You know, we have like Umbrella did a really cool release. there's a German release for it, the US release, and then the Arrow release. And like,
Mhm.
so it's so fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, man, like film school, I was hanging out with my cinematographer who did go to film school and I did not. But we were in my living room, like sort of like debating film school a little bit, and he's not for it at all. Like he kind of disagrees with me, but he
Mm.
did turn to my Blu-ray wall and was like, "Well, dude, you probably spent more on your Blu-ray collection than I did going to film school." And I was like, "Yeah, touche. You're probably fucking right." But
Aye.
I think you learn so much more from just watching and studying movies than,
Mm.
and watching the bonus features, like
Yeah.
that was huge. Listening to commentary on was like, God taught me so much about filmmaking by just
Yeah.
listening to commentary.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something it's definitely had a sort of extra importance the past few years. Like, there's been campaigns for things like Hush, which has now just got a physical release, the Flanagan movie from Netflix
Yep.
from
Yep.
2016, I think that was, and nearly a decade later before we're getting that
Yep.
physical copy. So yeah, it's great to see that you're managing to get that, and I'll let you go
With
and
three
good luck.
commentary tracks too.
3 commentary sites, so you can go watch it once.
Yeah,
So you watch it once, then you watch it the other 3 times as well. Get the extra insight.
yeah,
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 exactly.
exactly. Yeah, I did one with my DP, one with Jim and Jocelyn, and then one with James,
Yeah,
the producer.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, dude, I get so excited. I mean, I follow all these Blu-ray things on Instagram, and
Mm,
they just announced Night of the Juggler on 4K yesterday, which is like sort of a lost movie. Like
mm,
there's like a 35 print new bev that they show every once in a while, and I think there's like a really bad transfer on YouTube, but you really can't find that movie anywhere, and I
yeah.
fucking love it. And yeah, it just got announced yesterday, so I was very, very excited.
Add to basket as you see quick buy, and then
Oh,
that's your
always,
sorted.
always
Yeah.
pre-order. Yeah, yeah.
Pre-order.
I'll get all
Yeah.
these movies, and Rach, my wife, is like, I'm like, I swear I pre-ordered this like 6 months ago, and yeah, yeah,
Brilliant. Well,
yeah,
but thanks very much for your time today, Francis.
yeah. Of course.
I'll let you crack on with the rest of your day, and good luck with the rest of the release. And it's a fantastic movie, so make sure anyone that's watching definitely pick up a copy or make sure they can see it somehow. Definitely.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Perfect. Cheers, Francis.